before you become a unicorn, as you just said, you need to invest some time in research, and most of the research is done, of course, in the academia. And for many, many years, we only had academic research in the area of climate tech. And it was always looked as this kind of knowledge is really a societal challenge, but it's not really an economic challenge. And somehow the regulation and the need and the instability of the weather actually is some of the major factors why we somehow look at this knowledge which is done by you guys so amazingly as knowledge with an economic value. So we are here now to understand a bit more how can we push the researchers in the academia to do a more applied research, to evaluate better the economic value of this knowledge, and somehow to put the seeds for the next unicorns that will be built based on this knowledge. So we have here one of my closest friends, Keren, which is head of the Ramot, the Israeli TTO, and also co-chair of ITTN, the Israeli Tech Transfer Organization. And we have Professor Lilac Amirav, professor at the Technion, and also a CSO at QDSOL. That's the name of the company, right? So somehow she already did it, actually. She knows how to also do the research and also to grow a company. And we have our dearest guest, the most very important, of course, but I always present the women first. So we have Dr. Ray Johnson, which is the CEO of the Technology Innovation Institute and Aspire. Also, we are talking, us in the Israel Innovation Authority, quite a lot with the UAE, United Emirates, about collaboration, and I think we can work together. We are both somehow in the desert, so we have similar challenges, but we also want to invest quite a lot of money in this area. So I will just explain a bit about what we are doing in the Innovation Authority. I'm head of the division, as I said, innovative infrastructure, but we are also investing around 500 million shekel per year in research and infrastructures. That's quite a lot of money. I think we are the largest fund who is putting money in applied research, industrial research. That's why we think this is extremely important, that we will push the academia, both in Israel and abroad, to put emphasis on applied research, which will be with economic value, and we will be able to push the Israeli industry to this specific field. So I will start with the first question, and I will start with our guest, if I may. Ray, so what are the challenges in going from academic climate research to applied technology with a future to be commercialized? What is the pathway to overcome it? It seems like, as I said before, you are doing in the academia quite a lot of research in this climate tech, and so, somehow we don't see many, well, we see a few, but not so many successes coming in climate tech, starting in the academia. And please explain us, why is it so difficult?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you for the nice introduction. I think the question of, lab to market, which is the main topic here, is somewhat complicated, and there are a lot of different ways of looking at it. So I'm going to try to think of different ways to answer the question. The first comment, I guess, would be that a lot of the startups are in what I'll call a tech push as opposed to a user pull mode. And in the tech push mode, they understand from an academic point of view what the academic challenges are, and they certainly have a vision for where the technology is going to go. They may not have a specific user in mind yet. So I think the first message is understand your user, understand what the ultimate goal is, and then try to tailor the technology development plan so that it meets that use case. So that's important. Another way to look at it is kind of the TRL scale. And so the I think the TRL scale, technology readiness level, goes from 1 to 9. It was invented by NASA. Most people in the room probably know what that is. 1 is kind of the idea, the academic research, and 9 being the fielded system. And I think when you break that TRL scale down, there are different components of it that belong to different entities in this triad, if you will, of maybe academia, industry, and government. The next thing I would say is this is a big problem. And so the idea that there are 1,000 flowers in academia and trying different ways, we don't know exactly which technical solutions are going to be the ones that are going to work. So I don't think we need to criticize too much yet in an early technology development activity like climate change, because there are so many big things going on. I don't think we should criticize the fact that there are 1,000 flowers being planted or 1,000,000 flowers being planted. That's great. However, it's been said in a number of panels that I've listened to today, this is a really big problem, and it's going to take a lot of money to solve it. And so we can't continue to stay in the mode of TRL 1 through 5, right, where we get a proof of concept and then it dies. We do a proof of concept. We have to move beyond that. So therefore, I think there's a big role, and we've talked about it in other panels, for central governments to take a major role in this activity. Should central governments decide where the funding goes? No, they're probably worse at that than anybody else. That's not what they should do. But what they should do is provide large amounts of funding that can be used by academic researchers, that can supplement, it's too big for VCs to handle alone, in my opinion. That's the message that I'm trying to give here, that a lot of the early stage companies that you've seen here today are funded by VCs, and it takes them through the seed round, through the A round, through the B round. But the significant funding that's required, the TRL scale is 1 through 9, but it's a log scale. Also, it requires log funding, right? 6 through 9 are going to take a lot more funding than 1 through 4 or 1 through 5. And so therefore, I think this idea of government playing a major role in this triad, if you will, of academic, government, and industry playing together is super important, where they can take on these high-risk, high-payoff activities. So there was a book written a number of years ago that was called Green to Gold. And the message was that there's a lot of money to be made in climate change activities. And I think 100% agree that there is a ton of money to be made. It's an important problem, and there will be trillions of dollars in revenue for the companies that do this well. I think the ecosystem that has to be developed in order to be successful is something like I described.
Yes, well, I was amazed of the fact that you have established an institute that with hundreds of researchers coming from all over the world, and they are doing research, and now your next goal is to build an industry based on this, and as you said, this is extremely difficult.
Later on, I won't take the time right now because I don't want to dominate the conversation in any way, but I wanted to then later kind of tell you how we, within the Advanced Technology Research Council, ATRC, have put together what I think are the necessary components for this pathway. We'll describe that later.
We have a question on this, so we will get there. But Lilac, from your own experience, what do you think are the main challenges that's really prevent us from pushing the knowledge to the industry?
So I think one of the key challenges that I personally experienced is that coming from a pure academic setting where we are working on curiosity-driven research, very fundamental type of research, it is sometimes hard for the researcher to identify and recognize when the technology is actually mature enough to bring it into market. And I think that this can be rectified pretty easily by raising awareness, establishing a community such as this amazing one, and maybe incorporating more people from academia into such settings, so they'll be able to identify what type of matureness is required, as well as having entrepreneurs and early stage VCs actively going into the academia and searching for the right IP and helping us bring it out, and strong proactive tech transfer units. And the second challenge that I experienced was with the tech transfer unit, and I apologize. And I talked with many other colleagues that had the same type of challenges including many amazing breakthroughs that we will not enjoy as a community because they stopped at that stage. And so I think perhaps we need to maybe take a step back and rethink the model and how we define and measure success and how we incentivize it.
Thank you, Lilac. So actually, Karen, you have the right to react to this challenge, and I would say you are the major, most important facilitator for this commercialization challenge. So please explain us, how do you do it in Ramot? We see quite good, amazing project coming out from Tel Aviv University. I think you were ranked 10, I think, in the economic ability to create new startups, right?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. We work really closely with the Innovation Authority, with all the initiatives they do, and they do really great things along the last few years. First of all, I would like to comment on what Ray said. I think that he's absolutely right. We have an early TRL in our technology at the university, and government funding is a necessity for that, because it bridges the gap for the technologies that cannot yet get funding from the commercial players, VCs, even angels. When we take money from government, I think we should also pay very attention to the strings attached. As citizens in Israel, it is natural for us that when a government, a Ministry of Science or Ministry of Energy, give grants to entities or to universities, then they get royalty-free, non-exclusive rights to use it for national purposes, and we would all like as citizens for the government to do that. However, in issues like climate, issues that involve government changes and other governments' collaborations, this is a very difficult issue. We have, for example, a certain technology, really exciting one. I will not elaborate on it, but coming from the laboratory of Tel Aviv University, the researcher got a grant from the Ministry of Energy. And as part of the grant, the government gets a royalty-free license to use the technology and also to give it to other government collaborators. A company from the industry that saw this technology as what it was interested in getting it and developing it and investing money in it, saw this term and said, okay, that's a problem. We will not be able to commercialize it because the government has it for free and it can give it for free to other governments that it collaborates with. So I guess that in certain issues where governments are also clients of technologies, we need to differentiate, and we need to sit with the government and think about how we can encourage the commercialization of these technologies and not put, I think that without any intention, barriers for that.
Yeah, for sure the government is, I think, one of the main players when you try to commercialize climate tech. But what we see more and more companies which are built on IP, which is not really facing a global challenge, but more a very specific market. So I think the regulation that's the government is pushing for is to push I would say the companies to build an economic value. So I will give an example. For instance, anything to do about recycling plastic. The fact that we have supported the plastic industry in Israel to transfer to recycled plastic materials was one of the reasons was the European regulation. And from this case, we are building an IP value which is not belong only to, not only relevant for government, but also to the private sector. But just to understand, I stay with you, Karen. So how do you see your role as a TTO in facilitator? What do you think will be your ability, not only by pushing the government to give more money, or we have other options?
I wish I could, but no. We see ourselves as nurturing the marketplace. You hear me? Okay. We see our... Thank you. They told me to speak closely, but I guess it was too close. Okay. We see our main role as nurturing the marketplace of all the players, connecting the brilliant researchers at Tel Aviv University with the entrepreneurs, with the investors, with the government, with everyone, by doing a lot of activities that expose what the researchers are doing in their labs, and expose, on the other hand, the opportunities to get financial resources from all these players. So, for example, when you go out with a new call for proposal, we do a lot of work, and this is why we are successful in that. We do a lot of work in distributing it to our researcher, in convincing them, in helping them to file for these grants, and bringing them the money to get them to a higher TRL. So we're trying to get all the players all the time together with different means like meetups, physical, Zoom, exposures in the websites, emails, whatever we can do to bring everyone together and try to make more business.
Do you push them for applied research?
We push them as much as we can. This is our role, but they have their own role of curiosity and academic freedom, so we try to keep it balanced and not push too hard.
Yes, Lilac, yes. So you see it from the other side, yes.
I just want to comment on the subject of pushing towards applied research and say that incremental work is expected, but real breakthroughs are not. And we can never really predict from where they will come. And so there is a really critical role for curiosity-driven fundamental research, because that will be the pool for the next real breakthrough. And so if we'll really just push for applied research, we will narrow down things. I think that's not really
of course. We are for the fact that the universities will do basic research because they are the only ones who are doing basic research. Without them, you don't have any knowledge and no invention. And of course, we are looking for balance number of PhD students for a professor. Some of them has to do some basic research and others applied research. Ray, you have designed, I would think, a unique way of handling the innovation need of those researchers that you have gathered from all over the world. And how do you do it?
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer that question, but I'll just make one comment. I think the concern about how governments and private industry interact around intellectual property is important. I think it's been my experience, and it varies by country, of course, but it's been my experience that oftentimes governments think they want to own the IP, but they don't know what to do with it, and it sits on a shelf and they admire it, and really it doesn't impede the company from doing the business. Oftentimes they want a license to the technology, et cetera. So I think maybe that problem is, it's of concern, and it can be a big problem, but oftentimes it isn't. And then the other thing that I was going to mention about government funding is, I think transportation as an example, and there are many others, industries that are going to be the big players in climate change happen to also be regulated industries in many nations. And as regulated industry, government's already there. Government's already playing a role. And so having them be funding that activity, also be regulating that activity, I think there's a connection there that can be made as well. Now to your question about the Technology Innovation Institute. So there is a government body in Abu Dhabi called ATRC, Advanced Technology Research Council. It's a government body, and its purpose is to create the innovation and technology ecosystem in Abu Dhabi initially, and then more broadly in the UAE, to be that technology innovation component of the transformation of the UAE economy from a commodities-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. So this is a big job. This is a multi-decade job. Under the ATRC government body are three companies: TII, Technology Innovation Institute, which is the applied research and development arm, and there are currently about 650 people from 63 nationalities people from around the world in 10 centers. TII.ae is the website, and it does a pretty good job of describing what's going on there. So the 10 centers span a wide array of activities. We do have a new center, Renewable Energy and Sustainability Center, and we have one of the chief researchers here at the conference with me today. Second organization is Aspire, and you can think of them as the program development arm. We have identified 6 priority sectors in government that we want to work with, and Aspire's job, among others, is to talk to those sectors, understand what their problems are. That goes to my point of understanding what the client needs are, and also understanding what their aspirations are, or the things that we can help them do that they didn't even think about doing before. We also run competitions out of that organization as well. And then the third component, again, when you think about the TRL scale and the triad of government, academia, and industry, the third component is called Venture One. So you can think of this as kind of a combination of an incubator accelerator. And so ideas that become mature enough in TII can spin out. Let's imagine kind of the cycle. They're identified, the problems are identified by Aspire, the solutions are developed by TII, then they go into Venture One, where they can come out as licensing agreements initially and/or companies. And so it's an operating profit and loss center, a P&L, so you can actually get outside investment as well. So in my view, this ATRC model kind of does many of the things that I was talking about. We have currently 63 TI today, 2 years old, by the way, 63 agreements with 35 universities and research institutes around the world, in North America, South America, Europe, Asia, so all over the world. And so that helps us bring in the academic component because we're an applied research organization. We connect to companies. We tend to go, TII from a TRL point of view tends to go from 2 through 5. So we bring in the early stage with academia, take it to proof of concept, and then partner with others who commercialize or industrialize that. And then opportunities can exist for some of the ideas to go into Venture One, whereby they can be monetized and commercialized through that internal process as well.
Well, of course, this is really nice, a very unique way. It's like you built a huge incubator in Masdar City, that's the name, right?
It's in Masdar City.
Yes, Masdar City. So you just built a huge incubator. I just went back from Boston where they built a huge flagship, actually, which also giving like 2 years of I would say, coaching those researchers in the way to the market, and we see more and more professors starting their own company, like you, Lilac, and I think this is amazing because it seems like you have one leg in the academia doing this basic research and the other one in the applied research, and somehow we are building a bridge. What do you think, Keren? Do you like the fact that there are more and more professors starting becoming I would say, leading CEO of the companies, or you rather them just to give this opportunity or this job to someone else?
Absolutely. I'm encouraging them to do that. Every time I talk, something happens. Okay. I think that more than me happy for that they do that, I think that the management of the university should encourage them to do that, because when they come to the university, they come to make research and they are promoting themselves in the academic settings, and all the fact that they have patents or not and they commercialize or not, if it has anything to do with their promotion or the way that the university evaluate them, that's upon the management of the university. And I can tell you that Tel Aviv University management is very liberal and very for entrepreneurship and commercialization. And one of the goals of the current president of Tel Aviv University is strengthening the relationship with industry. So as much as entrepreneurs we have in university, we would like to have more. We encourage them also by the way that we transact with them as entrepreneurs with respect to the equity part. For example, we have in the university a regulation of 60-40 regarding commercialization of products, meaning that from any $100 coming from commercialization of a product, 60 goes to the university, 40 goes to the inventor or the researcher. When you establish a company, it's not only about commercializing what you did so far in the university. It's about what are you going to give after the execution, after the company was established. Are you going to be the CEO, the CTO, only advisory board? Whatever you do, you are going to invest time and you're going to invest efforts in building this company and taking it to success. So in Tel Aviv University, it was agreed that the researchers get 40% of whatever the university get for what they did until the establishment of the company. And from that moment and ahead, they are allowed to negotiate with the investors and get any percentage that the market think that they are eligible to according to their reputation, according to their strength in negotiation, according to how much the market value them. If they are serial entrepreneurs, they will get more. If it's only their first time, they will get less. So the market will decide, and the university doesn't get anything from that because this is allocated for their future efforts, and this is the way it should be. And I think that this is part of the success of Tel Aviv University in growing entrepreneurs. We establish around 15 companies per year, and these companies grow really nice. We have more than 100 companies in our portfolio. So I guess that how the management see it is part of the way and part of the process.
Yeah, actually, we have somehow changed the way we measure our the effectiveness of our instruments, funding instruments. Can you hear me? Sorry. So we are somehow change the way we measure it. So we are not only looking for the fact that this knowledge will be transferred to an Israeli industry. We somehow waiting for new startups to be born. I think you are the only area in Israel where there are more and more startups. So only the ones who are starting from the academia, and I think this is extremely good for us. Lilac, do you think this was easy? So this transfer of just becoming a researcher to becoming a researcher and a CSO of QD Soul, was it easy? And please take this opportunity to explain us a bit what QD Soul is doing.
So what we're doing is we're harnessing the power of nanoscience and nanotechnology into direct, affordable solar to green hydrogen production. And this has the potential to completely revolutionize the field. I think that this is my baby, this is my passion, this is something that is the product of 13 years of research, and there's no substitute for that. So I think that at the very early stages of a company, there's definitely a critical role for the people who invented the technology and are behind it, because that's our true passion. I think that later on at more mature stages, there are definitely people who are more experienced. For me personally, it was an interesting adventure, moving from developing nanoparticles on the milligram scale and working with the tiny little devices, and then talking with potential clients that are asking for 500 acres for pilot operation. And it required rethinking of the process, familiarizing ourselves with completely new challenges, and that brings us back to different new aspects of research that I found to be really interesting.
Well, so we have quite a lot of lesson learned, I think, from the fact that we have invested many years in creating new knowledge in the climate tech, and only in the last 2-3 years starting maybe to commercialize more and more out of it. Of course, there were successes even 40 years ago, but we only see a large number of new companies born based on knowledge in this specific area. And tell me, Ray, how many of your researchers are doing climate tech? Is it growing? Do you think that the lesson learned is the fact that you need to push few more years in basic research because this is extremely difficult field, or you think this is just like any other field and we are able to overcome any challenges there will be?
I think the environment is ripe for opportunity. And, looking at it I'll say something about the system here. I think it's amazing. And I think, you know, if you think about what Israel has done in the academic development of their institutions, they have world-class research going on. Almost every research university has a tech transfer office. And you might say what has been done in the digital environment and in SaaS, all those things, that's now that model, which was so successful, built on possibly 8200 experience and things like that, that's now being expanded into other areas. So we're very excited about partnering with these institutions. And we think the opportunity is great. Specifically regarding TII, the center is brand new. And so the gentleman sitting here named Dr. Sofokoulos is, when you mentioned that you're working in green hydrogen, he smiled, he was beaming because he's a hydrogen guy. So he's a chief researcher in hydrogen. He believes greatly in a hydrogen-based economy. And there are many opportunities in that area. But we will be expanding the Renewable Energy and Sustainability Center to match kind of the size and scope of the other centers. The typical center in TI is between 50 and 125 people. I expect in a year that this center will have 50 or 75 people in it working in a variety of different areas in sustainability. We will also concurrently, through Aspire, be working with the ministries. Climate change touches a lot of ministries. We'll be working with those ministries to understand their problems and to be looking for both academic partners, hopefully in Israel, and also commercialization partners to help commercialize these activities. But I think that the opportunities are great, the problems are real, and we need to work quickly. There is, in fact, in this ATRC model, a significant amount of government funding that's been dedicated to this set of 10 centers and the 6 priority sectors that I talked about. And so I think we're in a good position to see some of these transition within the next few years as we have, just kind of put it in scale, in the first year of operation, at the end of the first year of operation, we transitioned 30 products to TRL 4 or 5. And so that was in the first year. And so I think we'll see that same kind of scale even increase in this area because the demand is so great.
So some of the lesson learned I understand here is the fact that we need 2 to 3 years for applied research funded by the government. And we also need to work hand to hand with the government themselves to define the challenges and also for creating the right regulation. So Keren, if I can...
One more comment if I
Sorry,
could.
yes.
When you were talking about the TRL scale, you mentioned the kind of, it sounded like the valley of death, right? In the so-called valley of death where you get to the proof of concept and then you don't get enough money to take it forward, that's one of the big problems. And so getting through that valley of death requires commercial partnerships, requires a deep understanding of the problem, because by the time the hockey stick, the so-called hockey stick in revenue won't be there yet, but the hockey stick in funding requirements will be there. And so you have to kind of, that's one of the problems with the valley of death is, especially with long cycle businesses like these businesses. This goes back to the first question. You know, what's different about this than a SaaS business? SaaS business, you work for a year and a half or 2 years, you got a product, you got customers, and it goes. This is not like that at all. This is a deep tech, these are a set of deep tech businesses that require a lot of effort. And as you get to TRL 5 and do a proof of concept, now comes the real problem. Now comes the need for more funding. And so that's where I think, because the payoff in the mind of the commercial partner may not be there, it's specifically because of that reason that I think government needs to play a role. Again, high risk, high payoff activity.
And I think
Yes.
that as I experience it, we are living today something that is similar to what happened with the coronavirus, when governments around the world poured a lot of money and then so much research emerged from all institutions and everyone globally. And now I feel that there's a lot of money in this area coming from governments, coming from the European Commission, also the Israeli government and others, and so many opportunities. And you can see many researchers that had a certain direction now turning it into the direction of climate tech and all kinds of application relevant for climate tech. And I think we're going to see a lot of fruits, and the field is going to flourish in the next few years.
Yes, so Lilac, you are not worried you are funded only because this is a narrative right now. You are not afraid that you were funded by the government and VCs only because it's a global narrative. You think it's here to stay because you were talking about the coronavirus, and somehow when you look now at the crunch-based figures, you see, okay, anything to do with pandemic research was really high a year ago, and now it's a bit going down. And as you said, people are transferring their focus to climate tech, but climate tech seems to be more fundamental and
it's
important.
Fundamental, and energy is here to stay. People will require energy,
even after
more
the war.
Energy. We have between 10 to 14 terawatt gap, so we will need energy, and we're already big consumers of hydrogen. We require hydrogen for ammonia, for glass industry, steel industry. So just simply converting the polluting hydrogen to a clean alternative will always be something that the market will need. I don't think it's a fashion.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope so. It seems like, when we were doing a call on climate tech a year ago, we had 8, 9 proposals coming from from researchers doing applied research, and the last call we are handling right now, we have 3, 4 times more. So for sure we see an increase in the number of proposals. We also believe that this is here to stay. And I want to ask you a final question regarding your, what is your take-home message from the audience? I mean, what do you think will be the main challenges that we will be able to overcome, or we need to overcome together, just to make sure that this is here to stay, and we will push for more funding for this climate tech and not continue funding all the time the fintech and the cyber, etc. So is it only the role of the government, or we are here to push the VCs to put a bit more money there? Lilac, yes.
I agree with what Ray said here. VCs need to be aware of the fact that this is not the type of company that can sustain 2 people working over pizza in their parents' garage. This is deep tech, and it's requiring infrastructure, building of a lab, and eventually a product. And in order to enable real tech transfer from academia all the way to unicorn companies, then we need the VC's help in those early stages, and the patience and understanding, and everything that's required for support in a real R&D companies.
So we need to put more money on infrastructure just to make sure it will be easier and cheaper for you to develop new research, deep technology.
I think that you can invest in infrastructure in universities where industry can also use and the researchers can also use. And as for the VCs, they need to be leveraged. They have to be leveraged by the government, if not fully, then partially. But they need it for the next few years because they cannot take the risks upon themselves. It's not economic for them at this stage, but it will be later on. So I guess yes, government and collaborations with the research and universities and infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Ray. What's your message?
I guess the last message is this is a very important area of research and development for all of us. And aside from your view about the political side of climate, the research can yield great benefits for everyone on the planet, no matter what your position is on its source, anthropogenic, not anthropogenic, all those things. living in a sustainable world is better for all of us. We talk about smart cities, we talk about sustainability. This research that's being conducted here, that through this triad that I talked about of government, industry, and academia working together, we can help change the world to make it a more sustainable and better place.
Thank you very much. I will try to summarize. I think, anyway, what I've learned from this very good panel, I think, and one of them is the fact that the government has a very important role, not only in the regulation part, but also in identify the challenges and establishing a regulation which will support it. We should invest more money in infrastructures, preferably academic infrastructures. I also learned that we need to fund a few more years for fundamental research because this is a real deep tech. It's not application. It's not like cyber. And it seems like the academia has a very important role. You have more and more companies coming out from the academia, especially in this area.
We welcome everyone to come to Tel Aviv University and meet our excellent researchers in this field. We have dozens of them, and we'll be happy to connect them to you, to introduce them to you, to make meetups, whatever.
Yes, so we for sure in the Israel Innovation Authority, we will establish some new academic industry meetings on different areas in the climate tech, and you are all invited to come. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Aviv.